Jones, and I'm here to tell you folks, the world has fallen. The fascist globalist overlords, they're implementing the Great Reset. You don't believe me? I've seen the tapes. Watch it, folks. Watch as these pot-bellied Zoomer goblins work with the Illuminati to pit us against each other. I promise I'd be a good boy.
I'm a good boy.
There's only one cure, folks, and that's liberty. And there's no better channel to find freedom than Fabian Liberty. Anarchy is order. Government is civil war.
I just got 3 things to say. God bless our troops. God bless America. And gentlemen, start your engine!
I got you, sir. Let me get my shoes. Hold on, you're ready. So we gotta move to the front.
Not only do you have a micro penis, which is an important point, but on top of that, you refuse to share your Pokemon cards, and that's not nice.
So first of all, a 2-inch penis is not a micro penis, okay? And for your second point, my Pokemon cards are all mine, and I don't have to share them if I don't want them. I work super hard together, and they're really special to me. So I'll keep them.
You don't understand. You can't continue to play with us if you refuse to share your
Not fair.
cards.
I'm Ukrainian, and this is my beach. I'm Ukrainian, and this is my gas station. I'm Ukrainian, and this is my school.
2 seconds earlier.
Would you let a Jew work out in your gym without paying if he claimed that the membership was promised to him by God 4,000 years ago?
Bro, you are fucking...
That's a good question.
Yo, you're fucking funny. No, I mean, everyone pays.
What if he tried bombing you for that?
Bro, I mean, that would be like some crazy crime. Some act of, I don't even know, terror, I don't know.
Are you taking a political stance right now?
Just found in my house. That's called a bird grasshopper. I'm gonna eat him.
He's not been transparent. I mean, there may be...
They are making routine announcements about the things they are finding, and they are inviting questions about the things they are finding every single day.
But by definition, he's not being transparent. They're not providing data for the things that they say they have found evidence of. They just aren't.
The White House has provided...
You can make announcements, and you also did admit that he actually...
So you just don't believe it. I mean, they are providing information. You just choose not to believe that it's true.
We're seeing about 13 months for these brain and spine MRIs. Cool. Canada, where healthcare is free, but only if you can afford to wait.
Step 10, states must publish their own map and allow internal challenges to their own map. So the government has published a map. They have invited the states to challenge the map. Then states have submitted initial proposals, and they then have to publish their own map and allow challenges.
Wait, who's challenging it within the state?
Well, organized interest groups, environmental groups, like I don't know who specifically, but literally anybody. This is, right. I want to say something because it's very important I say this. This is the Biden administration's process for its own bill. They wanted this to happen. This is how liberal government works now.
This is something they instituted for this bill.
For their bill. This is a bill passed by Democrats with a regulatory structure written by Democratic administration. Okay.
Right.
Step 11.
Ideological subversion is the slow process which we call either ideological subversion or active measures, активные мероприятия in the language of the KGB, or psychological warfare. What it basically means is to change the perception of reality of every American to such an extent that despite of the abundance of information, no one is able to come to sensible conclusions in the interests of defending themselves, their families, their community, and their country.
For our most tricky disagreements, seeking the truth and seeking to convince others of the truth might not be the right place to start. In fact, our reverence for the truth might be a distraction that's getting in the way of finding common ground and getting things done.
free fries when you get vaccinated? I got vaccinated. You're saying I could get this? These delicious fries? Wait a minute. But there's also a burger element to this? Let me check with Bill Neathart. Is it too early in the day to eat a burger? No. This can be breakfast? Okay. I want you to look at this and think about, again, some people love hamburgers, some don't. Really want to respect all ways of life. But if this is appealing to you, just think of this when you think of vaccination. Vaccination. Right. I'm getting a very good feeling about vaccination right this moment. Thank you.
When I win, I will immediately bring prices down starting on day one.
Men to woman, or woman to men.
Man to woman.
From penis to vagina.
In the shower, on a walk, the Dylan hour. Feeling sweet, feeling sour. I feel nothing. The Dylan hour.
Hello and welcome to Wales. We understand being a refugee isn't easy. They're going through so much. Fleeing your country is difficult, but Wales wants to help you feel welcome. The Welsh Refugee Council is here to help you.
Tell me you love me. Say it like you mean it. Say it like you mean it. You message one other guy ever again whether we're together or not. Yeah, understand me?
But if you're a man who's stuck with a woman and you don't even get along with each other and it's a show marriage and you have to be together and you argue all the time and you're sexually repressed and you're being promised in secret that you can go to an island and finally be pleasured and satisfied, no one's ever going to find out, that's how you end up on the island. So this whole monogamy garbage that's being pushed by the West, especially amongst our elites, is the reason we have the biggest problem with pedophilia, and they don't have this problem in South America.
The whole point of this is for me to begin to reintroduce myself. I'm doing this both personally for me, but in a professional capacity. Moving forward, the majority of what you will see will be me speaking in a professional capacity. My goal is to continue to help give them.
And I'm always arguing with them, hey guys, if no one pays taxes, then who's going to stop the fires? Who's going to stop all the violent crime? Dummies. And then the LA fire happened, and the fire department didn't stop the fire because I guess they ran out of budget for water, and the police didn't stop the looting because I guess they didn't want to get near the fire. And so I guess I lost that argument. My bad.
Dummies. I'm still probably gonna be an ornery little fuck tonight. But I'm happy to be back, at least for a little while. I'm working on a video. It's probably I'm gonna very happily clickbait you, and hopefully it'll be out tomorrow. Might not be out till Friday. Happily clickbait you into all being super pissed until you actually watch the video. And it'll probably be the new channel trailer as well. So that should be fun. Sneak peek the vid, I'm not showing shit. It'll just become too obvious. I want to ruin the moment. How am I a scumbag for not showing you a work in progress? Like, fuck, what? But yeah, I broke my fucking middle toe and like sprained the toe right next to my big toe, in between my middle toe and my big toe, tripping over like the cat and the children, trying not to hit anybody and fall on them because I'm like a fucking giant, massive fucking tub of bone and muscle and sinew and lard, trying not to kill one of my children. No, I just was trying not to fall on anybody, and then when I went and twisted, like the momentum of like trying not to fall on anybody meant that I swung my left foot really, really fucking hard, and my big toe and the toe beside it went right in between the corner of the couch post. So it was like, like I went like this and hit it, and then bonk. Like just kicked the shit out of the couch with like a full, full roundhouse kick. Basic. Well, it's not. I guess it'd be a low kick, but it was the full momentum of like my hips in a circle, just shoom, into the fucking wooden corner of the couch. That shit hurt. So yeah, so I didn't stream. I was like, I could stream, but I'm gonna be a dick. And then I had somebody cancel me Tuesday. That's why I didn't do Monday stream, but Tuesday got rescheduled to Saturday. So we'll see, I'm scheduling and rescheduling with these people constantly. So we'll see what's up. But as of right now, this Saturday, I should be talking to Noah from Midwestern Marks about the concept of the woke right and what is woke. Because I really want to have that conversation with him. Who's today's guest? I don't know much about him. I know he seems to be like he's an anarchist. Kind of maybe like a punk rocker, Gen X and anarchist vibe to him. But I haven't downloaded a lot of his content or anything. He reached out to me after Tim Pool, and just this is when we could make it work. It should be a fun little conversation. We have a few things on the docket to talk about. Tankies are the woke right? Yeah. Sure. Yeah, but you think anyone that isn't a Gen Z retard is a boomer. And yet you're here. Yo, Pretzel Rock's giving me a little bit of a vibe here. Spooky thoughts. That's what my daughter said when she was painting my nails. She was like, we can't. Just like pink is for girls, but boys have to use a Halloween color. Boys have to do a spooky color. So she painted my nails black. I've got them mostly clean, but I don't have like real fingernail polish remover. Makes sense. Like there's like a couple little specks of black still left. And then I went with I visited my my mother and my grandmother for like Mother's Day. And so I'm there and I've got like my fingernails painted. My dad like shows up and he's like, "Ooh, I have so many jokes to make fun of your gay ass for having painted fingernails." And that was like, my daughter did it. I don't know what to tell you, man. And he was like, fuck. Like, he was so disappointed because he knew that like it was a really good excuse to have painted fingernails. He's like, fuck, man, the wheels were turning to call you gay in so many different ways. Painting nails is gay? I bet you're gay. I feel like I don't know if you're gay or anything, but I definitely feel like the gayest community is definitely like Groyper Juicebergs. Like the lady doth protest too much, and then you look at their hard drives and their Discord servers, and they're all sucking each other's dicks and talking about Nazi femboys. Like they're definitely like of anybody here, I suspect you're probably the gayest. It doesn't mean you're actually gay. I'm just saying the Juicebergs tend to be gayer than the average person. Find me a Juiceberg and you'll find a gay person. Like, you know what I mean? Like Jake Shields, right? He's one of the biggest Juicebergs on Twitter. A lot of photos of him in gay clubs holding hands with people and shit. It's like, oh, okay. All right, I get it now. It's like back in my boomer days, Slope is dope. Gay dudes used to like become captain of the football team and then like beat up the gay kid, be like smear the queer, right? To just hide the fact that they were gay and they couldn't get over it. Nowadays, I think they become Juicebergs. I think like the ones that like have like a right wing mentality somewhere and it clashes with the fact that all they want to do is suck dick. Like they just have to like place that shit somewhere else. And I think it goes on to the Jews. I think that's what they do now. What are you talking about? It's just a hypothesis. I don't know if it's true or not. I've seen some evidence to suggest that Juicebergs are gay as fuck. Like Nick Fuentes is clearly gay. Like anybody that says Nick Fuentes isn't gay has a broken gaydar for sure. Idubbbz and Hassan, yeah, oh yeah, for sure, they're gay. From what I remember, Lindsay stated in Peter's podcast. Oh, that didn't work out right. I think I need to change this coil. I'll do it after stream. From what I remember, Lindsay stated in Peterson's podcast that the term woke right is an oxymoron and it's meant to be provocative for what he identified as neo-fascists. I did a whole stream reacting to it. That's not what he said. He gave a whole bunch of vague definitions of woke right and like never defined it. The problem that he has is even like we even looked at like someone that asked him on like a subway or something where he gave a more detailed, in-depth kind of explanation of it. And like he's right that the right that go, fash, share characteristics with the left that are that way. But wokeness means critical theory. Like wokeness is just a synonym for critical theory. And he admits this multiple times. And then he tries to say, well, they have these things like critical theory. And it's like, no, they're similar by happenstance. Like it's a nonsense term. Like the woke right that he calls the woke right, they have a different philosophy of teleology. They believe in the iron law of oligarchy. They believe that hierarchies are valid. They don't believe in that the natural state of man is like a sharing collectivist, but rather that the natural state of man is evil, or at the very least is either or and needs God's vision in order to align it with morality. So they're not trying to return to a natural state of man and like engage in critical consciousness in people to revolutionize the system, but rather they're trying to go back to a previous time when society was more reined in or the culture was more reined in, and they believe that they can control that culture. So just like, yeah, they're both economically socialists and they both want power, and so they're willing to play fucked up games to get that power. And they're subversive, but they're not woke. Like it just, if that's what woke means, then woke just means anybody that isn't liberal that plays power games. Which would, you know what I mean? Like that's stupid. That's a dumb definition. And it's intended to be vague so that he can use woke right as a pejorative to get the backlash as you described. And then he can retreat and be vague. Like he does this all the time on Twitter. He'll be like, if he's really, really, really forced to give a definition, he'll give like it's critical theory and, this type of praxis. But then he'll just call any conservative that does anything that like similarly looks like illiberalism woke right. He'll just like Sargon of Akkad saying, hey guys, don't be an idiot. Marx clearly identified some problems in society, and he's an eloquent writer. And then he's like, what kind of a retard would think that anything that came from Marx was anything other than just straight retard? If you admit that Marx saw a problem or two that we have today, and you admit that like his writings were charismatic to start half of the world's revolutions, then you're woke right. And it's like, that's just dumb. It's just he was really popular when he was attacking the left from position of liberalism, which sits on the left and is just what birthed the left. And now that the right is like, yeah, we don't want what birthed all that bullshit. He's like, you're woke. And it's just like, it's such a crybaby bitch thing. Playing some Valheim and listening to that buttery smooth voice. I need to get a pop filter because I was going through like editing clips and I realized that I sound fat. like I have a lot of diction in my voice, mostly from choir, I guess. So I have a habit of like really pronouncing my like T's and my B's and my P's, and they pop a lot. But the way it's coming through on the mic is like, I want all the ham. Like when I hear myself, I'm like, oh, this audio is not quite right. Like, I need to back up a little bit, and I need to get a pop filter because like my diction is working against me. Like I could sound better. I might actually need to hold on now that I'm thinking about it. Hold on. Probably bring that bass down a little bit. Bring that high up. Bring my mids up a little bit. I'm going to level out my level out my EQ a little bit. There we go. So let me level out my EQ a little bit. Yeah, I mean, like he just posts vague shit trying to get people to fucking bite. Just trying to get drama, trying to get conversation, trying to get anything. Hold on, is my mic too low? Hold on. I just realized something. No. Okay, we're good. Yeah, no, for a second I thought because I might have gone a little heavy-handed on the EQ, but I think it's fine. I don't want to mess with it anymore. It'll end up sounding bad. Because like I can intellectualize what EQ levels should be like because I used to do that all the time. Back when like me and my boys were recording a bunch of other people's music. It was like a side hustle. And just haven't done like music production in the past and stuff. So I can kind of like tell where my stuff should be. But if I end up messing with it too much, it'll get too far from where it ought to be. And then I can't do it by thinking. I'd have to listen to it. Fabian Liberty is woke. Think about it. He's poor. I'm assuming it's he is, right? Because Slope is dope. Unfortunately, never. He came from be nice to Slope is dope, right? It's very clear he came from a very underprivileged background, and never quite got to high school level literacy. He's poor, simps for black women. Is from a broken home, single parent, truly a modern day wokist. I don't simp. But I am a single parent from a broken home. I did grow up poor. I'm still kind of poor. And I do like black women. All those things are true. All I can think about is that scene from Star Wars where Princess Leia goes on like a tirade of insults on Han Solo, and he's just like, who's scruffy looking? And just accepting all of like the you no good scoundrel, like all this other shit. Do you believe that there might be some merit to Lindsay's actions, even if his approach is disingenuous, or do you believe this is a tactic to remain or consolidate power relevant in the political sphere? I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with trolling a little bit. I think you can't. It's kind of like when a journalist, or sorry, let me rephrase. It's kind of like when like The Daily Show brings on a presidential candidate, and then they say something really dumb, and then people are like, "It's a comedy show." Like it's just a joke, but they do like a whole little political speech about why Elon Musk is evil and doesn't pay taxes or something, and then you explain that they're wrong, and then they're like, it's just a comedy show. It's like, what he's doing is fine, like troll. He just doesn't get to be taken seriously anymore. Like, if you're constantly going to lie about shit and, like, troll people and not explain your concepts, you're not going to have good definitions, you know, in the hopes of consolidating power for your own team, eventually we're just going to get to the point where we're like, oh, you're no longer a serious person. We just don't take you seriously anymore, and we shouldn't. Trolls speak truth to power, protect at all costs. Some do. Right? Some do. There is a problem group, identitarian right, the white nationalists, the Groypers, the Duesbergs, and the Christian nationalists. But Lindsay uses them as a Mott. Yeah, it's a Mott and Bailey for anybody that is not a neoliberal. It's like, there's a problem with, you know, Jay Dyer or like Jim Bob as Christian nationalists. There's a problem with people like Slobozov as Duesbergs, right? There's a problem with Nick Fuentes. There's a problem with, you know, people like Jake Shields, you know, or somebody, you know, it's the one that keeps popping up in my head because I see him on Twitter all the time. Like, these people are obviously a problem. White nationalists, obviously. I don't think there's a genuine white nationalist problem. I kind of disagree with that. I don't think there's a lot of white nationalists. I think the Groypers and Duesbergs and like Ortho Bros and Christnats, maybe a little bit ethno-nat in there for sure, but like genuine white nationalists, I think it's just mostly people leaning into the meme. Like, I don't think there's actually a lot of people that want to get rid of all the Hispanics and blacks and like turn America into a white nation only for the whites. You know what I mean? Like, I just don't think that. I think that's an infinitesimally small group of the population. But all these other people kind of like dog whistle to that group. And like, it's not like they're dog whistling because secretly they're a white nationalist. It's more like a dog whistling to trigger journalists and trigger the libs. And like, you know, the dog whistle is like, you get this is kind of a joke. You get that we're not really serious about this, but we're the only people with the balls to say it because all these Karens and pussies are going to jump on us, and like, we'll just double down on the joke. Right? It's really more of like you get it, I get it. We can joke around. Like, they're just not serious about a lot of their stuff. And I think they've seen that memes and shit just pulls in stupid followers. Groypers are terminally online. That is true. I've seen a lot of people that like get brigaded by like Nick Fuentes and the, you know, or like, you know, what those other people that used to be on like Cozy TV or whatever, right? And it's like, people will be like, they're botting me, and I'm like, they might be botting, but the reason you got ratioed in 60 seconds. And someone got like 180 likes on a retarded comment that doesn't make sense is because there's 1,000 fucking Groypers on Twitter right now that are like refreshing constantly, hoping to see one of their heroes fucking dunk on someone. And like the moment it happens, like 40 of them like see him on the timeline and immediately like and retweet it. And then like the other ones that are like refreshing their timeline are like, oh fuck yeah, it's time for the dog pile. Like, they're bots in the sense that they're retarded and they don't have like genuine thought out opinions that they've formed themselves through like logical thinking. But like, they're not bots in the sense that it's like an AI. Like, they're real people. Groypers are winning, Jew lovers crying. The only reason Groypers have any level of influence in politics is because Jews won't shut up about how they're oppressed by them. Like, if Jews just learned to let anti-Semites be anti-Semitic and just laugh at them and continue on, like, the Groypers would disappear because they're just such a small, irrelevant portion of the political landscape in America. But every time some Jew is like, fucking, we gotta ban this, we gotta get rid of this, all of a sudden people are like, hey, I don't like this, but like free speech, man, what's going on? And like more and more people are like, I'm noticing, you know what I mean? And then there's people that are like getting in on the joke. Sure, buddy. What's wrong with white nationalism? It's retarded. White nationalism is the ultimate cope of a bunch of loser, trailer trash, unsuccessful white people with no class, no IQ, and no success. To try and blame all of life's problems on some other ethnic form of subjugation. It's the most pathetic shit ever. It's beta bitch shit. It just is. And the very few people that are like physically fit, badass dudes are just grifting. Like they just found a group of people that will worship them because they didn't get what they wanted in some other domain of their life. That's why we need to vote in slopes so everyone can see it on TV. Now there is a form of accelerationism I'll get behind. The problem is that everybody would just fucking vote for a socialist after that. Like we would just get like a full-blown lefty socialist. It's not like the left is going to wake up to the concept of power by the state being used as a form of oppression against other people. They're just going to say that the wrong type of power was in, so we need more power to manage our culture and society so that we don't get that type of power. It's just a ping pong of bad ideas between like the Juicebergs and the commies. I'll take white nationalism compared to this globo homo. Who, me? I'm anything but for the globo homo bullshit. Doesn't even make sense. Like, I'm more against the globo homo bullshit than any Republican or Democrat in Congress. Except for maybe, like, Thomas Massey or something. Yeah. That is the current system. Agreed. Oh, you mean like, you don't mean like I'm the globo homo. You mean like then the current globo homo bullshit? I don't know that would be, I mean like, I don't know what would be worse, to be honest. I mean, they're both bad. I don't know which one would fuck us more. Like, I feel like if we brought in white nationalism, we'd all be significantly poor. And we'd have to struggle a lot more. And a lot of us would have to work, like, multiple jobs. And if we went, like, full-blown white nationalism, you know, then, like, economically it would be really, really devastating. But, like, you could probably ride the subway without a crazy homeless person or an angry black person, like, fighting you. Like you could when the commissar or the fucking, you know, strength through joy representative of the Nazi party allows you your day off because they're engaged in factory beautification. You can probably take your kids to the park without there being drug needles around and shit. You know, like I do think that like certain things would be better under white nationalism. I think it's crazy that people are just like, oh, this is the greatest evil, so we have to hate this evil especially. It's the same reason when people want me to hate Trump, like he's a special type of evil. It's like, no, he's evil, but he's not special. Like under white nationalism would be evil. It would be economically devastated. Like it would be horrible. You'd have to get rid of a lot of modern conveniences, and your living situation would be drastically worse. But, again, I could probably take my kids to the park and, like, I don't have to worry about them, like, finding some heroin addict's needle or getting attacked on the fucking subway. I'm just saying. Like, if we had white nationalism, You wouldn't have an immigrant burn a woman alive on a subway and then a cop be like, nothing to see here, just another whitey dying. Like, you wouldn't have that shit. I just hope I can get the right paperwork to have a black girlfriend. Like, is there like a paperwork process where like some people get exceptions because she passed the IQ test? You know what I mean? Like, %95 of libertarians are white men. Yeah, but think about it for a second. If you want to live in an ethnically homogenous society, maybe you ought to move to a libertarian one. I started bringing up like things that would be better under fucking white nationalism, not like I'm endorsing it. And like 7 people left the stream. 7 people were like, I'm not down with this. 7 people did not want to hear some harsh truths. It's like I'm not a fucking ethno-nat, man. but 7 people were like, I don't know, man. That shit was funny. Pussies. A bunch of pussies left the chat. Let me see where I was looking for. Speaking of ethno-nats, dog, I have found the greatest, the absolute greatest racist. If we're dealing with competitive racism, this guy's the king of racists, and you should follow this man. All right, so Joshua Rain. Oh, well, that's not what I wanted to do. Hold on. There we go. Okay. So Joshua Rayner on Twitter. Okay. 56K. Never seen him before. Josh Rayner Gold. Golden, California. Physical culture. Supreme energy. Seems super gay. All right. Looks pretty fucking gay. But check this shit out. Holy shit. Congratulations, ethno guesser. You scored an average of 5,000 over 10 rounds in today's ethno guesser. You had 10 perfect rounds. 10 perfect. It gets better. It gets so much better. Wait for it. So this person, Juniper Tan, okay? Just 1,000 followers, some random Asian profile lady, right? She just goes, you click on the map. Wow. And he responds with pale yellow skin, dolichocephalic, and mildly hypsicranic skull with a leptorine nose. Huangoid phenotype, northern China, likely from Shandong province. And the response is, think my mom mentioned Shandong as a place where she was from, and dad was from Suzhou. Dude fucking clocked in. He locked in. This man took the limitless drug and was able to fucking immediately know what part of the earth, not the country, the fucking province that this girl's ethnicity is from. I was like, yo, someone protect this man. Oh, he's a Jew, my guy. I don't give a fuck. He's fucking amazing. You know what? As always, the Jews fucking beat no matter what you're doing, no matter where you are, there's a Jew and an Asian that's better at it than you. Even in competitive racism, the Jew and the fucking Asian are stomping your ass. Slope is dope. You got to step up your game. Oh my God, dude, that shit had me. All of this was apparently correct. Like her mom, she's like, that's where my mom's from. Oh, fuck, dude. Oh, I was dying. That shit's still funny to me. Sorry if my question seems sporadic or if I'm dragging down. Dude, we're just so in the first hour of a stream, I usually just plan on bullshitting with chat. Right? I'm just saying, "Hey, I've been back. We're we're just doing whatever." Now, if you want to guarantee that your questions get answered, especially if it's not in the first hour of stream, then super chat, cuz I'll always answer super chat. And that being said, boys, like, share, subscribe. There's 26 of you currently watching. I lost 7 of you when I started saying some nice shit about the ethnonats, right? That's okay. We'll get more people in here. The stream is early, and I've been gone a couple days from an injury, so I expected it. But even with 26 of you in here, there's only 10 likes. It's unacceptable. Like the stream, boys. It's free. Like, share, subscribe. Cut that notification bell on. If you want to get notified of when a stream is going to occur, you can't depend on YouTube because all of my videos are demonetized. Well, limited ad revenue, which is basically the same thing. They're all suppressed in the algorithm. Who the fuck undid their like? Who the fuck undid their like and or added a dislike? I saw that shit. I saw it drop down for a second. Fuck you, Slob is Dope. I know you fucking went and hit that down, that thumbs down. But if you want to make sure that you know when the stream is going live, you're just never going to get that information. Join the Discord, and I always put the @, the @everyone in Discord. Be a part of the larger conversation. If you want to watch me, I don't know, like argue about how Jim Bob's retarded or something, or be toxic, or hear my shower thoughts, follow me on Twitter. And of course, for $3.99, you can get a membership. It just comes with a little badge, a couple of emotes. It's nothing serious. I don't gatekeep any content behind it, so it's purely just to help the channel out. Help me go out, get interviews, help me continue to do this and spend more time doing this as opposed to time making money elsewhere, so that I can, so I can give you guys more content, and grow the community, spread the liberty word. Will you always answer super chats? Honestly, I don't know why I would lie in my answer to a super chat. Unless it was like a crazy troll or something. Quick, someone ask his pee-pee size? I always respond to super chats. I'm not telling people my IQ and I'm not telling people my dick size. I know both of them. But no. What if I was just like, you're going to have to super chat again because there's not enough information in that question. Is it from base to tip? Is it hard? Is it, chubbed up a little bit? Is it flaccid? Is it from the butthole out? Like, what kind of measurement are we using? If the super chat was for enough money, Well, it's just like whatever number you give when it comes to dick size or whenever it comes to IQ, people are going to be like, they're just going to say that you're lying if the number is bigger than what they believe, or you're going to have people telling you like that you don't live up to it if they do believe you. Like, you're just literally inviting nothing but negativity with those kinds of things. Like, there's nothing good from people actually knowing your dick size or knowing your IQ. Suffice to say, they're both much bigger than average. And you can believe me or disbelieve me. I don't care. But anyways, hold on. Bustamante, Solorio, Javier, Isaac. I'm sure I butchered the fuck out of that. But you asked a question, so let me get back to it. I'm sorry if my question seems sporadic or if I'm dragging you back to the topic you've already moved on from. While I mostly agree with you, I think you overestimate normies' ability to think for themselves. Yeah, that's probably true. I've seen my friends, all of them Mexican Americans, not just go along with the meme that Jews are to blame for all society's ills, but actually believe it. See a lot of similarities and truths between Douglas Murray's and James Lindsay's quarrels with the current state of the right. Yeah, I do think that average is not 4 inches. Wait, is average cannot be 4 inches. That's not, last time I looked it was like 5.2, 5.7 or something. Unless you're factoring in Asia. Average erect penis is 5.25. Right, yeah. Flaccid is 3.61. Yeah, okay, I'm not wrong. Well, the problem with those global studies is in countries that are like low socioeconomic status, war-torn areas, they go off, they don't do objective measurements. They just do like a survey and they ask people, how big is your dick? Right? And then and it's hilarious because you'll look at it and like in the Congo, for example, like they'll be like, the average penis size is 10.5 inches. Average is like 1.5 inches away from a foot. And then they factor that data in. They'll be like, did you know that blacks on average have 3/4 of an inch larger penis? And it's like, yeah, if you count people lying, like, what? Like sure thing. Like, cool. And then in Asia, they'll do like, Asia doesn't do any self-reports. Like, they make you do that shit in a lab. And so it's like, yeah. So, like, how small the Asian penis is actually just closer to reality. And then how big the black penis is like overblown by bad data. Bad data probably collected by Jews. Am I right, Slope is Dope? Them Jews lying about black penis size so they can spread that interracial porn shit because they want to dilute the white race. Okay, that's why they got all that interracial porn that's intentionally put forward on Pornhub. Did you know the owner of Pornhub is a Jew? I feel like that was Slope is Dope's response, so I just kind of went with it since he's in chat. The BBC data is collected by Fabian Liberty. Yeah. Got a very large sample size. That's funny. Derailed by thinking about penises? Dude, we're just vibing. All right? And the vibe was on penis size. All right? That's what we're doing. Dude, I saw that Tim Tebow is like apparently like working with a bunch of people to try and track down child predators. And I was like, dude, I want to react to this on stream. And then I grabbed the link and I pulled it up. And then it was 3.5 hour interview. And I was like, yes, I will never get through this. This is like, this not happening. Like an hour and a half took us like 5 hours. When I'm pulling up my my Audible, because I don't really read that much anymore. I just listen. Austrian Business Cycle Theory by Paul Quick. As I listened to like half of it. I'll listen to the other half later, but that's only like 2 hours. And then, where's the other downloaded one? I'm re-listening to Religion and Human Evolution. Now that I've like learned a whole lot more, I kind of want to listen to it again and like get the vibe. Every time I go to church, pastors whine and complain about all the child predators and child trafficking. But like most of the data is just dads who want to be with their kids after a divorce. It's just a grift to get people to donate to the church. Yeah, child trafficking data is you're correct. Child predators and like the data on like downloads and redistribution of like child porn and stuff, not so much. Like there's a lot of predators out there. But yeah, the child trafficking shit is mostly just parents kidnapping their children. And it's overwhelmingly men because overwhelmingly women get custody of the kids unless they like really fuck up. Like I've seen like judges will be like, "Oh, you make more money well, then that means the woman should get the kids because your more money will more easily be done in child support. It's like, how the fuck does that work? So because the man has a better, stable job, this means that he shouldn't have the kids so that he can fund the woman? Like, that shit is like child court system is just brutal to men. I bet you can't even justify logic in your worldview. Oh my God. I can't if I have a retarded Christian that just goes, that's not justification. Mine works because God. Like, I can. Just doesn't work when you have a bad faith retard interrupting you with dumb shit. Being like, oh, give me an exact definition of this real quick. Oh, you got the definition wrong? You said justification instead of epistemic justification? You don't even know what epistemology is. You don't even know. No, don't answer. Don't try and tell me it's the theory of knowledge because you didn't know it was the theory of knowledge. Okay? I knew that because I said that I knew that. You're retarded. Let me explain something to you, retard. Did you see Jay Dyer and Jim Bob debating Not So Erudite on the Whatever podcast? I saw some clips. I hate all three of them now. So I don't really hate Jim Bob. Jim Bob pisses me off, and I think he's a little slimy. But Jay Dyer is just such a fucking annoying toddler that he's on another level of the annoying shit that Jim Bob does. And it's like, the annoying shit that both of them do is what makes them dishonest, right? And it makes them very clearly trying to score points instead of have an actual discussion, have an actual search for the meaning or truth, or actually, allow your ideas to be critiqued and then critique the other person's ideas so that we can see if there's some truth from the other person, or actually validate the truth that we believe to be true, right? It's just a fucking entertainment game. Jay did well in that debate. Again, I haven't seen it, but Not So Erudite is does this dommy mommy talk down to you bullshit whilst pretending that she's this fucking big brain about everything. And we'll just try and sneak in little disses. And she's just I've never seen someone be so passively aggressive in the middle of a debate as Not So Erudite. So I just kind of don't like any of them. Just not a big fan of any of them. Again, Jim Bob's not that bad. Jim Bob does some subversive, dishonest bullshit in his debate style, but he can also have a conversation. Right? If you break through some of that, you can get to a genuine conversation with them and and try and it can be a good conversation that gets somewhere. But Not So Erudite can't. And even if you think you're having a really good conversation with Not So Erudite, she'll use her closer as a means to passively aggressively sneak diss you and shit. She's done it to me before. And it's just really? We were having a good conversation for a half hour there, and then you had to just ruin it. Not So Erudite copies Destiny's debate style? Not really. She's certainly influenced by it. So it doesn't surprise me if one was better than the other. I heard he was sick, and I was almost if he slows down a little bit, he probably comes off looking better, not worse. Just because he's such a dishonest asshole. Jay Dyer, that is. He's such an over-the-top, dishonest, constantly can't stop interrupting, that if he was a little sick and he was just toned down a little bit, if he brought that 11 down to a 10, he probably comes off better if he's a little off his game. Because he's just too aggressive. It works really well for his audience because his audience can't follow anything that's going on, and they just assume that big words, aggressive guy must be the right one. Why is the only tolerable right-wing Christian Andrew Wilson? Because Andrew Wilson knows how to stop the train and have a bit of a joke. He doesn't take himself too seriously. He knows how to play the game and dance. Jay Dyer plays a game, but he only plays it for his audience. Jim Bob isn't quite as good at the game as far as I can tell. But Jim Bob might be the smartest of the three. If I had to guess. All right. Bum, bum, bum. Let me find this link. Actually, let me do it on the side, just in case. Oh, I gotta allow him to use my microphone. Ugh. Hold on. Gotta go to fucking settings. Where is it at? Privacy, security. Is it sight and shield settings, maybe? Yeah, microphone. All right, so because I'm using this bullshit fucking... Because I'm using like a restream thing. It might get wonky. Because usually these restream things will... Oh, fuck. Whoops. Usually these restream things will just constantly cut my fucking... Cut my, my microphone volume down. Every time it peaks in the red, it'll just cut it down until I'm quiet, and then you guys can't fucking hear me. And it's super fucking annoying. So let me know when that happens, and then I can kind of like adjust my audio a little bit. Like bring them down, so you might have to cut your volume back up a little bit in order to hear us both. But there's nothing I can do about it when people use these browser mic things, because it's just a thing that happens. There we go. Why do I hear his like air conditioner running? That looks like a good mic. Like, what is happening? Lauren Southern is a grifter? Yeah, dude, of course Lauren Southern is a grifter. Bro, what happened to everybody? I was just switching my shit around and like a third of you left again. Does YouTube just keep kicking people out?
All right. Let's see here. Mr. Liberty.
Hey, what's up? Are you already live?
No, I wasn't going live anyway.
Okay, well, just for the record, I am.
I gotta change where my audio is coming from because you are in my computer for some reason and not my headset. Let's see. Audio output pointed at. There it is. All right, I should hear you in my headset now.
So I have this weird thing. I don't know if it's because I have a virtual audio cable or something.
Yeah.
But as time goes on, anytime I use something where audio is controlled by an internet browser, it'll slowly lower my mic volume so I don't like peak into red levels. So you might notice like 20 minutes into the program, I've just kind of gotten a little quieter. And it's something I have to pay attention to on my end too. And it's super fucking annoying. I think it's because I'm using a virtual audio cable, but I don't know.
I have no idea. I just know sometimes it works, and most of the time it gives you trouble. So,
shit. Oh shit.
No, I'm glad we could finally get our schedules to line up. I hope everything is going well on your end.
Yeah, everything's going good. I broke my toe, but other than that, I'm doing fine.
Oh, Jesus. Falling apart, homie. All right.
Yeah,
I like
yeah,
that
I am.
background. Cool. All right. There's that. Centered up. You look nice. I guess your real name's Scott then?
Yeah. I just the channel name is Fabian Liberty.
Fabian Liberty, got it.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. I just been referring to you as Fabian Liberty because that's
the brand. You know what I mean? It's fine.
Your brand, yeah, for sure. Okay. Well, I tell you what. In general, I just was kind of looking for a conversation. I've got about 90 minutes or so to work with. I figure I'll start off with a few of the lighter topics, just kind of introduce people to the anarchy subject in general. I feel like I don't talk about it nearly as much as I probably should. And then when I do bring it up, people are like, "What are you talking about? No way." But hearing the episode that we'll get at all that, but hearing the episode of you on Timcast, I was sitting there screaming at the mic. I'm like, no, do this, say that, do that. Like it was a lot of fun, is what I'm saying. It was a lot of fun to hear those views represented. So
yeah, I appreciate. Well, I'm trying. I'm trying to represent them.
yeah, I heard that. All right, so I'm thinking what I'll do is just start off the show. I'll intro the show, ask you a little bit about yourself and how you came to anarchy and that kind of thing. We'll just kind of keep it not super in the weeds because it's kind of meant for an audience that really isn't fully like in. But just trying to present a few potential options or potential concerns, issues, and things that I hear a lot of, and maybe you've heard a lot of them as well, and you saw the bullet points, so you get the idea.
Yeah. I'm like I said, I'm already live. My audience is just in for the show, in for the ride.
Oh, you're going live with this right now on your channel?
I told I told you, like I'm always live. Like 99% of what I do is live streaming.
Oh, excellent. Okay, so we're
like,
live right now on your channel.
Yeah.
Like right now?
We're just chilling. Yeah. I've missed a couple days, so there's not a ton of people here, and it's a little earlier than when I normally go. So it's only like 25 people right now. But
gotcha. Well, shoot, I'll just go ahead and start recording, getting into it. I'm glad we I didn't know you did that. That's cool. So you just keep that stream running, huh? That's cool.
Yeah.
All right. Excellent. Okay, so let me see here. I'm gonna bring you out for just a moment. Okay. All right, welcome back to another episode of the Unframe of Mind show. I know it's been a little while. I've been taking a lot of time focusing on the Patriot Punkcast, which focuses on local Tennessee politics. But I do like to get into the weeds on some of this more philosophical stuff. And I was recently listening to an episode of Timcast, and this gentleman who goes by the name of Fabian Liberty on his channel was getting in there, getting dirty in the debate, and it was just a lot of fun to listen to. So I reached out to him and figured we'd have him on to discuss some topics on anarchy and maybe address some of the common concerns that I hear come up in quite a few debates. And I don't get an opportunity to talk about this quite enough. But with that being said, let's jump into it. Hey, what's going on, Mr. Scott?
Oh, I'm just I'm having a blast. Yeah, that Tim Pool show was awkward. It was weird. It was a lot of fun. It was a surreal moment. Kind of my first breakthrough foray into like a real famous people, going somewhere. I remember at one point I was hanging out, and there was like some girl there that was like, "Oh, I'm just here, because I want to hit Tim Pool's skater buddies." And I was like, "Oh, okay, cool." And then like 10 minutes later, she's like, "Yeah, I remember I had to give a speech to the Prime Minister of China, about the, for the Olympic qualifier stuff." And I was like, oh, I'm in a room full of people that are better than me. What is going on?
Yeah,
I'm happy to see anarchism, true anarchism, of the right-wing libertarian variety, pierce through the veil a little bit and get into those spaces.
Right.
It's needed now.
When you say true anarchism, you're differentiating that from something else. I suspect I know what, but what do you mean by that when you say true versus, I guess, not true anarchism?
Well, I would say that there are a lot of forms of anarchism by that label, but anytime something falls into contradiction, it is by definition not true. And so I'd say the philosophies of like, you know, the black bloc, Antifa types, the anarcho-communists, the, you know, once people are critically engaged and they have class consciousness, we'll all live on a commune and share our property together and sing kumbaya is not commiserate with reality and is not true anarchism, as I would put it. But they have the same label as us, and so it's important to differentiate, even if it is a bit insulting.
Yeah, I get that a lot, and I've noticed that the terms used so loosely that I think it's really muddied the waters and confused a lot of people in terms of what it actually is. And I even try to post at least once a year, like, y'all got it super confused. You're overthinking it. Like, it simply just means no rulers. That's it. Everything else that falls from that is what it is. I don't know why we have to overcomplicate things. And to hear the like you said, the black bloc, Antifa, and all them try to use anarchy, I'm like, wait a minute, if they're going to sing Kumbaya in the end, do they know the words yet? Have they started there and learned the actual lyrics to Kumbaya? And do they understand that it is a religious song? Already right off the bat, just not going to work. But
yeah, for sure.
In general, part of the reason I've been focusing more so on the Patriot Punkcast show is because I kind of had an epiphany, if you will, that focusing on local, federal level politics, there's only so much power that the average man and woman has to affect change over that. But if we focus on local politics, even as anarchists, we actually might be able to move the needle in terms of shrinking the size of government. And that's kind of part of why I personally have agreed to work with some of the politicians in the local area, because as long as they're on the same page in terms of shrinking government. And I figure once we've shrunk it to such a size that we can finally, wet finger it out like a candle, then we can start battling back and forth. But it seems like mostly I find allegiance in the right wing. And is that something you find as well?
Yes and no. I would say that the right fancies themselves to not be socialist, so they're more open to hearing critiques against socialism and state abuses of power through that lens. But it really, like, if I was an anarchist with the same philosophy that I am now, when Tipper Gore and the Democrats were trying to, get rid of heavy metal and get rid of, and saying that D&D was satanic and things like that, I think the shoe would be on the other foot, right? So it really is more about cultural sway of power, I think. And so I do think we're in an interesting shift where the right is going to begin to try, at least attempt to excise libertarian thought from their movements as coalitions of possibly the center become more receptive. And we I don't want to say we have to be a chameleon, but we have to be honest that, like, someone isn't an ally unless they're an anarchist. Like, they're fair weather friends. And we you want to use that space to plant seeds for ideas, right? And I think we've done that successfully in the right. You look at any podcast or something, the beginning of political podcasts, you'll never hear somebody doing a right-wing podcast use the term "the state." You'll never hear them say, well, I'm a little libertarian myself, these copes. But some of our language has spread through. Some of our things have spread through. And we have a really long uphill battle against us. That's kind of where the name Fabian Liberty comes from, because I want to reverse the Fabian society strategy, that incremental change is, I think, the only way that practically it will work. But I also think it's important that we don't doomer pill, that we don't black pill, and then we realize that the ideology that we're discussing right now, which is, anarcho-capitalism or libertarianism, as set out by Rothbard, was 6 people in a room 50 years ago. And the fact that there are all of these podcasts and shirts and memes and flags and, the LP as a political party, all of its fucking flaws included, right? Like, the fact that that's even a part of any conversation is, I think, a huge, big deal. But we do have to realize that we're toddlers, right? Like, that we're in the infancy of this. And so the strategy, as far as I see it, and potentially as far as you see it, is, to understand that great men plant seeds for which the shade of trees they'll never sit in. Like, this is probably a lifelong or longer pursuit, but I'm okay with
Oh
that.
yeah, oh yeah. We're never going to see. And I've kind of along the same lines of like Stefan Molyneux, who talks about this is probably a multi-generational change that we're not going to see it. We're never going to see it. You and I would love to see things start to take place, and I think you made an excellent point that we actually have seen some of those seeds take root in some minds, especially as the government continues to show its ass in these last few years, and we start to see, wow, they really don't have our interest in mind, and what other alternatives are there, and what's this anarchy thing? I haven't quite got to the point where I've had people asking me, hey, how about anarchy? But it is neat to see that it's more culturally acceptable to talk about it
Yeah.
right now, but it's not quite culturally acceptable to implement it yet. People still aren't quite ready to let go of the state as
the ideas are trickling down, right? Because like no one comes up to you and says, well, what about anarchism, right? What about anarcho-capitalism? What about, anarcho-objectivism, right? Which is a small group of us are kind of burgeoning out in that domain. But, like nobody says that. But if you were to ask somebody, we should abolish the FBI, it's just a corrupt organization 10 years ago, every Republican would have looked at you like you were a psychopath that just wanted, criminals and terrorists everywhere. But if you go to a Republican now and say we should get rid of the FBI, they're like, I'm listening. You know what I mean? Like they're not necessarily saying based, but some of them are, and some of them are going, well, what are your arguments, right? And I think that's can be a big win for us, at least in some domain, because I don't think without anarchists, people wouldn't seriously even bring that up in the conversation.
Absolutely. And the advent of the internet and its ability to spread ideas so much faster than they previously would, where, like you said before, it was 6 guys in a room versus now it's like 6 guys spread across every city across the country, and we start to make inroads. There was something you said earlier regarding the Republican side starting to push away, trying to differentiate themselves from the center. And insofar as I wanted to say, I've noticed this trend, especially here in the last day or two, where there was recently a post that I made about the right trying to ban porn, and everybody's like, ban porn, and I'm like, no, guys, come on. I don't know if you've participated in that particular discussion at all or seen it even. But I'm just like, so there's certain points where I have to call out the right for their silly shit, and it doesn't make me a lot of friends, especially as I start to build the inroads into the right. So I'm still trying to figure out how to navigate that, because it's really difficult to not just stand there and laugh them and send the clown emojis like I would with somebody who's clearly on the left and clearly lost the plot. Right.
So this is where a unique problem that libertarianism starts to butt its head. So here's what's really, I think, happening in this domain is. And this is kind of why I kind of brought up anarcho-objectivism, though I don't want to get into the weeds on that, because now it'll be even more niche thing. But
sure.
Just keep it in mind, right? Is that libertarianism, as set down by Rothbard, what we would consider to be anarchism or voluntarism or anarcho-capitalism, what is it, right? What is libertarianism? And what libertarianism is, in short, is a descriptive philosophy of natural law. Now, what does that mean for the normies, right? What that means is there are 2 types of claims. There are descriptive claims and there are prescriptive claims. Descriptive describes something, right? This cup is white. This cup is blue. It is describing reality. Natural law. What is prescriptive? Prescriptive is what you should do, what you ought do, in short, right? Mm-hmm. You ought have a duty to your neighbor. You ought, let an older lady cross the sidewalk. You ought to take care of your children by educating them, whatever it may be. These are moral prescriptive claims. And so one of the biggest weaknesses and strengths but I think weaknesses, is that libertarianism doesn't tell you what you ought to do. It doesn't say you should do this because it's good. What it does is it says, do not aggress. And the reason it says do not aggress is because only a system of non-aggression is ethically justifiable. Only a system of ethics can be a system of ethics if it is conflict reducing, right? If it's not creating conflict, but instead as a pathway to reduce conflict. And that is how humans create rules to live together, to reduce those conflicts. Now, the reason I bring all this up, I know I got kind of in the weeds, but the reason I bring this up is this becomes extremely important when we start talking about how to use power in the spaces of what appears to be morally degenerate things, is that Christian conservatives, Christian nationalists, Christian populists of other varieties, they see libertarianism and they're like, that's fine and dandy, but prostitution, porn, drug use, these things are evil, and your ideology has no answer for it. And they're kind of right. But they're comparing apples to oranges, because libertarianism doesn't tell you that you should do something against them, but also doesn't tell you that you shouldn't not do something against them other than grab the guns paid for by taxes and go put these people in cages, right? And so it becomes very, very difficult to have that conversation with conservatives when we talk about porn, because the moment we start saying, and that's just one example of a big domain of things, right? But using your porn example, it's like, porn is bad. Porn is destructive towards the mind. It is destroying relationships in some way. It is creating sexual degeneracy. It is creating a sense of anomie or normlessness by creating, certain degenerate behaviors to be normative when they are not normative. It is doing and the access to it, especially of children, is doing a world of unmeasurable psychological harm to our society. And the typical conservative answer is use power to stop this thing because it's bad. And then we say, well, you can't do that. And like, but you just said it's fucking bad. What do you mean? And so this is where we as anarchists have to really needle a thread here and recognize that we have to sell them on how we get rid of something without state power. And that is an ought that isn't a libertarian ought. That is not part of libertarianism, right? Libertarianism has nothing to say about it. And so I think that specific domain that you brought up is really important. I think it's probably the greatest weakness of libertarianism as we attempt to try and showcase it is, well, what would you do? Oh, well, I'd come together, I'd create a society like the Amish, and I'd ban that shit. And they're like, well, if you'd ban it, why don't you ban it now? And it's like, because it's not right to steal money from people and use guns to ban it and create a black market and create, a war on drugs 2.0 on fucking porn and increase sex trafficking and all this other shit. I know there's a long-winded answer, but I had to
you're good.
give it a
You're
foundation.
Good. Yeah. I love hearing the whole letting it breathe thing is great. There's something that you said in there, and I'm just wondering I brain farted. Where did that idea go? Good Lord. I was trying to hang on to it and I lost it. Way to go.
I'm sorry.
No, you're good. Because that's the downfall of trying to listen and think at the same time. So there was something you said in there. Oh, that's where I really find the most joy personally, is because I'm a bit of a problem solver. I like the puzzle of it all. I like the complexity of trying to solve a problem that most people just knee-jerk react to and just say, hey, the state, we'll just use that. Make a law. We should ban it. We should, and it becomes much more enlightening to try to think, okay, well, if I don't have that tool at my disposal, then what? How do we actually do it? Well, that forces, at least it forces me to start thinking about root causes rather than trying to play whack-a-mole with all these symptoms we constantly see popping up in society that constantly become the social media. Everything starts going crazy on social media because we're all talking about, oh, there's this immediate thing in our purview that we must address and we got to come up with some law. And it's like, guys, this is a problem that's been multiple steps in the making that we need. It'll never get solved by just pointing a gun at it. So what do we do? It's more so just trying to retrain your brain. And that's, for me, that's what I'm trying to do, is retrain people's brains to start thinking outside the box. Hey, if you can't aggress against people, if you can't, say spank your kid because that's violates the non-aggression principle. Well, what is the alternatives? What else can you do? And it's been quite the journey, and I'm wondering how you tackle that. How do you go about bringing up these concepts to people and in such a way that they're like, oh, okay, I could kind of see that, or how do you introduce the problem solving aspect of it I think that's the question. Let's go with that.
Yeah. So I think there's a couple of things here to pick apart. So number one, I tend to look at, specifically when we're talking about political strategy in the state, is a recognition of like order of operations, right? It's like, you guys, like to the audience out there, you guys remember when you learned PEMDAS, right? It's like you got to do the things in the parentheses first. And that's kind of how we have to approach dismantling the state. Right? It's like we have to recognize that the entire state is a web of interconnected programs and NGOs and all these other things. And so, we have to recognize that if we're going to do specifically the praxis against the state has to be done carefully. One of the worst examples of libertarianism put into practice in political or in legal terms was the abolishing of drugs in the state of Washington. That was probably the worst way to do it we could possibly do it. And the way that we did it is we decriminalized drug usage and possession of drugs. And then we didn't change anything else. Horrible order of operations.
And then everybody stands back and goes, okay, look, it clearly didn't work. So your ideas are bunk.
Right. And it's like, well, why was that so bad? Well, there was two major problems with that. Number one is decriminalization of possession is not decriminalization altogether. It means that selling drugs is still illegal, and it means that businesses are incapable of actually going into the market. So it's still a black market, or you could call it a gray market. So a business isn't capable of advertising the safety of their product. A business isn't capable of, giving a drug out, but doing it in safe places. A business isn't capable of creating an app that allows you to rate your drug dealer so that you don't get fentanyl, right? Like there's a million possibilities that the free market is able to provide that are shackled and reined in by the state. The second is that the greatest evil of the state, the worst evil of the state is not the military. It's not bombing children. It's not taxation. It's the existence of public property. That is it is the hardest to see, most insidious portion of the state, is because it is the essence of conflict created and maintained by the state. Because conflict.
I'm interested in that. I don't see it that way, but I'm willing to be schooled on it. I'm not really sure what you mean by that.
So a system of ethics is justifiable if it is conflict reducing, right? If it has a pathway to resolve conflict peacefully. And if you read Hans Hermann Hoppe's Argumentation Ethics, right, you will recognize that attempting to justify taxation or these other things comes into a performative contradiction. It gets really complicated, but basically, you recognize people's bodily autonomy and then you argue for taxation. You're kind of falling into a contradiction, right? So, but what is this concept of conflict and why is it so important? Is that what conflict is when two or more people want to utilize scarce resources towards opposing means, right? So I have a glass of water and then I want to drink this glass of water, but you also want to drink this glass of water. Well, now we have a conflict because only one of us can actually drink this glass of water. Maybe we talk about it and we share, right? And like you drink from one, I drink, and then you waterfall. But let's say we can't come to an agreement.
Or you could shotgun it, or you could shotgun it to me later on after you're done, switching it around.
Yeah. Maybe we come to some agreement, right?
That'd be fun.
How do we share the water? Okay. Well, the problem is if we can't come to an agreement, then we have to have some system that says this water is mine. Well, that's what private property rights are. That's what private property is. It says that in the absence of us being able to talk it out, somebody is the owner of this property. And once we establish who that is, we can resolve the conflict by saying, no, this is my glass of water. This is my cup. I own this cup. You don't own this cup. Now, public property, socialism, communism, these are all systems, or Nazism, fascism. These are all systems that say, actually, private property doesn't really exist. Some of them will pretend like it exists to a certain domain, but there are limits. And what they will say
is
that,
like your toothbrush and stuff like that. Yeah.
Right. And so what they say is is that what they do is in order to reduce this problem, they say we'll use violence to resolve this. We'll impose rules, or we'll impose mob rule through democracy. We'll have a vote on it, and we'll determine. And then so that is in and of itself conflict inducing, right? If 51% agree to some certain set of rules, 49% lose. There is no conflict resolution for them.
And
they're simply
powerless
slaves.
to do it. Yeah, and they're powerless to do anything about it. And there goes your incentive to even try to build anything.
So what is public property except the purest expression of this concept, which is the lie that multiple people can have exclusive control over scarce resources. That's what a public park is. That's what a public school is. That's what a public road is. So the moment we instituted drug legalization, we saw heroin addicts dropping needles at kids' playgrounds. We saw druggies on the side of the streets in what should be clean, safe neighborhoods. We saw, people just trying to go to the gas station and they have to deal with clouds of weed smoke and explain to their kids what's going on. By creation of public property, what we create is that conflict. Some people want to take their kids to a park and not have heroin needles. And some people want to go into a room somewhere and do heroin. It is only when we have a private property owner that says, no druggies on my property, or says this is a clean place to do drugs, that we resolve that conflict. And so
that's the arena where you get to ban things, like you said before in your earlier example, without violating the NAP, right?
You're not violating anybody's rights if you have a privately owned park and you let people come to your park, and maybe you charge them, or maybe you have advertisements on the side of the park. Maybe you have a hot dog stand. However you choose to make money in your park, right? You're not violating anybody's rights when you say no homeless vagrants here and no drug addicts. But when you have public property, everyone is supposed to have access to this scarce resource, and everybody wants to use this scarce resource differently. Some people want to go fishing in the pond. Some people want to have a picnic. Some people just want a quiet place to sleep, because they're homeless. All of these different people want to do different things, and conflict arises because all these different people want to do different things with this property. It doesn't seem like it's that evil, but it is the greatest expression of evil, public property.
I can see it, and some people would like to build a house in that beautiful property, but can't because
absolutely.
It's owned by, that does remind
and that's
me,
why
though,
drug legalization failed, right? It's because of public property. There's the existence of public property created all of this conflict between people that wanted to do drugs and have a drug culture, and people that wanted a clean neighborhood where their kids could run around. There's a conflict here, and once we open and so before that, the state was acting kind of like a private property owner. They were keeping the degenerates and the weirdos away from public spaces that are meant to be family pro-social places. And then when we get rid of that, all of those places we open the floodgates to people that want to use them in ways that most people probably don't like. And it's not the drug legalization that's a problem. It's the existence of public property that is the problem. So this is the Jenga thing I'm talking about.
Yeah. This is part of the complex puzzle that I'm talking about. It's like, once you start pulling at pieces, you're like, okay, so that also reminds me, and I'll pop it up on the screen and post before I post on the channel. But there was a map I saw that blew my mind, and I'm like, because it showed on the American map how much of it is owned by the government. And I mean, I knew it was a lot. I knew it was a lot. And if I had to estimate, I would have said, I don't know, 10% of the overall United States is probably public parks. And holy crap, it's like 50%.
It's like 40-some%.
It is a lot. And then people are wondering why our property values are so high. Well, because we're all forced into one, much smaller areas that we can even grab property from. So that creates its whole issues on its own. And then it's just at some point, I don't know if, like I said, I'm gonna pop it up here on screen so people could see it for themselves. But when I saw it actually visually represented, it just blew my mind. I was like, this is a huge problem, way worse than I even thought. And then on top of that, we've got the issue with which I'm just now learning about, is China taking some of the surplus funds from our tariffs and whatnot that they had, and then going back and buying property here in the United States. It's like, now that leaves even less property for us, and then we're constantly fighting over. Of course, we're fighting over in the form of price, but the prices have gotten so ridiculous, so high, and people are more and more becoming, is at least the younger crowd is becoming more and more black
property
values.
property values is like 30 different reasons of state intervention that it's so high. Like there's no univariate analysis that says this is why property values are high, right? Like people blame like BlackRock or something, and this is the socialist go-to answer is like, you know, corporations and landlords buying up a bunch of property. It's like 40% of properties that exist are owned by someone that owns more than one piece of property. So, you know, in some domain, they're a landlord, but it's only like 2% that are owned by hedge funds. Most of it is like your grandmother died and then she passed her house on to you, and then you already owned a house. So now you have 2 houses, right? Like that's the vast majority of that 40%. And then the other, like another like 10 or 15% is people get rich. And what's the best way to make money in our fucked up governmental tax system is to have assets and then get loans off of the assets and hope that the loan interest rate approaches the inflation rate of the United States dollar. And then you can basically kind of just like keep printing money now that you're one of the rich people without having to pay a significant portion in taxes.
Right.
And so that's one government problem, right? Then you have, you brought up like the Chinese coming in. Well, there's nothing wrong with Chinese people buying up property. I'm all for it. Buy up all the property you want. What is wrong is anti-discrimination laws. I ought to be able to have a neighborhood that says no blacks allowed, or no Chinese allowed, or no Irish need apply, or whatever it is.
And the fact that that's such a weird thing to hear someone say is wild to me, because I'm like, if I will go to a restaurant, for example, and it says no blacks allowed, I'm probably not gonna. I'm not gonna eat there. That's fine. They can, but I'm not gonna stop them from like what good is it gonna do me trying to force them to serve everyone? I'm like, that's forced association. That's violation of our basic constitution, and nobody even bats an eye.
Right. I mean, but there's also there's a lot of NIMBY laws not in my backyard, right? There's a lot of places where their real estate could very easily become high-rise apartment buildings. But wealthy people enact laws that keep people from building apartment buildings because they want their nice gated community neighborhoods, and then the apartments can go in some fucked up area. Well, what does that do? Well, it puts all the poor people into one area, right? And then those areas become homogenous with low socioeconomic status people. Well, what does that cause? That causes crime. That causes breakdown of culture. That causes, all of the poor to be shuffled into one area. That causes labor and people that have to live there to have to be able to either get public transport or, a car or something to go to their job, because obviously poor people are needed to work everywhere, not just in the poor area. So it's like, that's a major cost for a lot of things, right? That causes more than just property value going up. There's quantitative easing that the Federal Reserve does, asset inflation when the economy takes a downturn because they refuse to admit the Austrian business cycle is true. So they just, pump money into the housing market, which makes the rich richer and makes the poor less and less able to afford homes. I mean, there's like a 20, 30, like I said, there's like 30, 40 different reasons why housing is a problem, and almost all of it is the government.
It drives me nuts when I do projects. I do a little home remodeling. When I do projects for people, sometimes they have a really hard time visualizing what it is. We're having to communicate and figure out what this visualization is. So sometimes I got to draw it out for them, and that's a pretty simple thing. I want the deck to look like this, but when I'm trying to describe complex ideas, it's easy for me because I've been in it so long, over a decade now. I can visualize what that society might look like if you take the long arm of the government out of everything and just let people do what they're going to do. And I'm not scared of the consequences of that, as long as we do it kind of methodically and don't like snap. We can't snap our fingers, obviously, but it's really frustrating trying to communicate that idea to, just even my own brother, for example. We get into debates all the time. He thinks Elon Musk is the worst person to ever walk the face of the earth. And I'm like, maybe some ways, but mostly not. I don't know.
I'll give you a tip with family.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to forget it. I'll give you a tip with family. And this is for everybody, with family and
that's
close friends.
That's where I was heading anyway, because those are the people we interact with the most. And when you're trying to explain these complex ideas to people, you kind of want your closest circle to at least understand you. They may not agree with you, but at least understand you, right?
The best way to deal with close friends and family is, and this is something I borrowed from Michael Malice, who I used to like before he just became like a fucking simp for whoever will go on his podcast. But talk to them about what they believe is happening. Talk to them about their worldview. Respect them. Don't call them stupid. Don't talk down to them. Come from a place of respect and love. And after they give you their worldview, I want you to I want you to ask them a very simple question. Okay, this is what you believe is happening. When will they go too far? What is too far for you? And make them tell you what too far is. And then come back to that conversation a year later. Because in a year or 2 years, depending on what they picked, you can go, remember that thing that you said was too far? Here's 3 news articles of them doing that thing that you said was too far.
Yeah.
So can we have a conversation now? And that's how you broach that up, is that you have to find a way to break the cognitive dissonance, and nobody knows what will break their own cognitive dissonance than the person themselves. So if you make them say, okay, here's my line, whatever that line is, you can revisit that conversation once that line's been crossed, because they will be, if you treat them with love and respect, and you just respect that their opinions are different, and you make them say what that is. If you come back to them 2 or 3 years later and be like, hey, remember when you said this was your line? Here's 3 examples of it happening. They will be so much more open because they knew that you knew, and they know they were wrong, and they're humbled, and they can be vulnerable and sit in a place of humility because you loved and respected them, as opposed to constantly chastising them, trying to break their cognitive dissonance. You know, there's a wonderful speech by Abraham Lincoln in his temperance address. This is before he's elected president, right? And he talks about this concept. And, you know, I'm paraphrasing here, but he basically says, you know, if you approach someone like your enemy, like they'll harden their hearts, whatever, you know, and it's like, but if if you talk to them like a friend and you show them that like you can love and respect them, you know, et cetera, et cetera. And he says, you know, it doesn't matter what logic you use, even though you throw your arguments with more Herculean strength, and even though, you know, it'd be a lance that is harder than steel can be made, it'll be no different than trying to pierce a tortoise's back with a rye straw. Like, people will just harden themselves to it.
Yeah. The strong arguments, the sound arguments, the, you know, perfect case doesn't seem to register at all. And
none of that
I think,
exists.
and fortunately, like, for example, my brother and I, we get along really well. We have a great relationship, and we talk, and that's beautiful that we can talk about these things. I know there's a lot of families that are way farther down the path and that just hate each other.
That's
they
good.
Cannot have these conversations, but our whole family is cool. We're just like, you know, we get in these little debates sometimes, and they're a lot of fun. But I don't know about you, but I have decided that the only people that I will just out and out laugh at are flat earthers. They get a special exception, but most people I'm patient with. So I try to take my time with most other people and their ideas, because I get that they've been indoctrinated into these ideas and stuff. So you can't reason someone out of an idea that they've weren't reasoned into.
I actually find flat earthers to be less problematic than normies.
Yeah, well, I don't know.
Whenever you find somebody that has come to grips with a conspiracy, you found someone that was partially waking up to the fact that our society is a house of cards built on lies, and they couldn't deal with it, so they gravitated towards some worldview or something that they could obsess over. And so if you can break someone out of something like flat earth or white nationalism or some of these like really harebrained places, they're far more likely to be something like an ANCAP or a libertarian or really see the world than like a normie, because a normie already has a popular opinion. They're comfortable.
Yeah, I see where you're coming from, and I agree to a point.
But flat earthers are crazy.
But right, most of the people that I've had just shut me out completely were flat earthers. The people that were like just completely hate me because I'm just, and it's not like I was being an asshole to begin with. It's always like, hey, what about this and this and this, and they're like like nothing penetrates at all. And I've actually had people unfriend me in real life over this stuff. And in my experience with flat earthers,
happening in Tennessee, boys.
So there's an interesting phenomenon. I don't know if you've seen this or can affirm this or not, but what I've noticed is I think flat Earth is to the right, what they them and pronouns are to the left. And let me explain what I mean by that. I mean, there's a certain personality type and that I've noticed among these folks that they've had their boundaries violated so egregiously, especially in their coming up through childhood and stuff, that they create they end up creating these identities where you don't have boundaries. Like the boundaries that are typically set and societally accepted and whatnot just don't exist at all. And you have this phenomena of they them where they're like, I'm not this, I'm not that, I'm kind of nothing, I'm in between, I'm floating. And just I don't know, I'm still trying to formulate the idea, but in general what I've noticed is when I talk to these people on a deeper level, I've noticed there is some pretty egregious violations of their person. I'm talking molestation, I'm talking physical abuse, I'm talking neglect, that kind of thing. Some really heinous stuff has gone on, and without exception, every single one of them I've talked to, this has been the case. And I don't know if there's something to that or not. I could be just, it could be just my own anecdotes that I've ran into.
Mm-hmm.
But I've been, I interact with people on the left and the right as a from my position, so I kind of get a little bit more of a sense of what these things are having. I don't know if you've noticed anything like that or not, or if that's something I can just kind of throw out.
I don't
want
to. Yeah, I don't want to. I don't want to psychologize it too much because, like, mostly because I'll get real off topic because I went to counseling. I went to grad school for counseling. My background is in that. That's actually where, hilariously enough, you would think with my background and how much I've read that I'd be like some pop psychology streamer, but as an ANCAP that's where I really went down. That's what I end up talking about.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, when you have trauma, you kind of one or two things happens, either you're mentally resilient or it's mental resiliency, right? It's hard to know, but some group of people kind of harden, they close off, but they grin and bear it, kind of, if you will. Right.
Right.
And obviously, you have these things called ACEs, which is adverse childhood event, right? So it's kind of a stacking effect, an exponential effect, where like one bad thing is all right, but two bad things is way worse than one bad thing times two, kind of. So like I don't disagree.
And just to throw the ACE score of the guy that I'm specifically thinking of, the flat earther. I'm talking to the level where his mother had him tried to have him exorcised by flame when he was younger. Like pretty.
Yeah,
dark,
I mean, that's one of those ones where you really only need that one. It probably comes with a bunch of other ones, though, if you get to that point.
Yeah,
anyways.
I think there's a certain boundary violation that happens, a certain level of distrust that happens that just extends. It makes you more susceptible to these ideas, like, oh, well, I can't trust that either. And I get where it comes from. I get where it's born out of distrust for the societal structures and what the people have been telling us and everything else. And I don't know. It's something I've been enjoying playing with, and just. I don't know if anybody else is watching this and kind of has seen that or noticed that, but just a fun idea to play with that I haven't heard anybody else speak on.
Yeah, I mean, so there's something to be so from the rights domain, I don't want to psychologize it too much, but you do have schizoaffective disorder and things of that nature. And the more we learn about cluster psychology, right? So your cluster A's, your cluster B's, your cluster C's. We'll talk about cluster B's specifically when we talk about the left. Now, when we talk about like cluster C's and cluster A's, these things can occur kind of in a spectrum, right? Like, it started off that every mental disorder was like, this is the mental disorder. You have it or you don't, right? And then autism kind of broke through and we were like, okay, well, there's all these different types of autism, so maybe it's a spectrum, right? Certain people have certain traits. Some people have other traits. Other people don't have other traits. For example, my son is nonverbal autistic. Well, he's nonverbal, but he's unaffected by sounds or texture. So in a lot of ways, he's better off than a lot of verbal autistic people, right? Like people that are weird, but they can speak and they can talk and they communicate, and he barely communicates. But like I can feed him any food, it's not going to freak him out. I can take him to a loud place, he's not going to freak out. Whereas like there are plenty of people that can talk, right? So like it's really it's a shotgun of traits, right? And so this, it wouldn't surprise me that trauma and personality disorders, right? Because that's really what we're talking about, is the whole domain of personality disorders. And so when you talk about having a stable personality that develops, that allows you to kind of engage in the world. What you are essentially talking about in terms of the development of personality is when you are young, you take in and garner information from the world that contextualizes your own feelings and allows you to match your feelings with reality. And so let's say you fall down and you hit your head and you have two loving parents, okay? If you hit your head on the corner of a table and it's really loud, your dad and your mom both come to you and they both go, "Oh my God, are you okay?" And they give you love and they give you affection and they give you empathy and they give you concern. And this allows you to go, "Ooh, that was really bad." And now the next thing that happens is you fall down, but you don't hit your head, you just fall down. But it's loud and it hurts a little bit and you cry. Mom comes to you, but dad goes, "He'll be fine."
Yeah.
That's a new piece of information that goes, okay, this is bad, maybe, but maybe it's not that bad. Maybe it's not that big of a deal, right? And maybe I should get over this. Maybe I should learn to fight back against this and push this down because it's not appropriate to scream and cry all the time.
Yeah,
and then
'cause
another time,
dad doesn't seem to be panicking, so it's probably fine.
Right. And then, last example would be you stub your toe and you're like, "Ow." And then you wait for it and people are like, "Hurry up and get to dinner." Nobody cares. Right. And then you're like, okay, nobody cares because it's not a big deal. Now, same scenario. What happens when you take a parent away? Now you only have one piece of information. And now you have a woman that is really attached to you, probably a woman, right? That maybe overreacts more often than not. Right. And so your information, your ability to map your, the engaging with empathy and your feelings and map them out appropriately to the world is stunted in your development. Now imagine you have two parents, but one of them is extremely abusive and the information you get from them is sporadic. Sometimes you hit your head and mom doesn't care because she hates you. And then sometimes you stub your toe and mom really, really cares because she's neurotic and overreacting. Now you're getting false data, not just a lack of data. And so this is kind of mostly, that's a really 1,000-foot bird's eye view of like how we kind of hypothesize personality disorders developing over time that change the way that you engage that information. So I don't think you're necessarily too wrong to think about schizoaffective and psychotic and not necessarily the full disorder, but traits like that in places like Flat Earth, where their ability to socialize and integrate their ideas with reality and their care, which is no man is an island, to be accepted and to keep the quiet thoughts that are kind of retarded, in the head, right? Like all of those breakdowns occur. Now, when
like anarchy in 2025.
Yeah. Now, when you talk about the they thems, we are almost certainly talking about covert, vulnerable, narcissistic personality disorder. So as opposed to grandiose narcissistic personality, this is a cluster B. Cluster B means they're all together. So antisocial personality disorder, borderline personality disorder, histrionic personality disorder, which you see more of in the trans community. But one of the things that you'll see when you look into the data is that we have really, really good data on trans people. Why do we have really good data on trans people? And they lie all the time and say we have really bad data on them. We have better data on them than we have in any other demographic in the world. And the reason is because in a lot of countries, if you want to get hormones, you have to go to a clinic, which means we have 100% capture rate on every single person in those countries that gets any form of medication, which would be their hormone replacement therapy, unless they're going through the black market. So we actually have incredibly good data on them. And what you will find is when we study personality disorders in the trans community, what we find is somewhere between 70 to 80% of them have a cluster B personality disorder, with most of them being. Wow. Now, it's the Iranian study says 70%. There's a Spain study that says like 55%. There's some studies that suggest 30%.
Still incredible. How does that compare to the general population?
The highest estimates you'll ever find is probably 4%.
That sounds more like, and then in politics, probably double that.
Yeah, or rich CEOs probably have some narcissism or something like that. Sure. But again, it's a spectrum. There's traits. Now, there's a lot of people that are uncaptured, right? Which they have unspecific personality disorder, cluster B. But it is my hypothesis that it is covert vulnerable personality disorder, which is a new form of NPD. And I'll tell you what it is, and you tell me if this doesn't sound like every they, them trans person you've ever heard. What it is it is a feeling that I am a special victim, that everyone must adhere to my victim status, or they are actually perpetrators of why my life is bad. I am a special person, and nobody really understands just how special I am. Anyone that doesn't affirm my specialness is an enemy that I need to be malicious against, and I need to use power against, and I need to excise them from my life. If someone isn't willing to affirm my identity and my special victim status, and all of the problems in my life are actually tied to this identity, it's not that I'm lazy, it's not any of these other things. I'm not going to take any accountability. But if someone won't do that, it doesn't matter if they're friends or family, they need to be cut off. And I need to find other people and use and manipulate them in some domains so that they attach to this. My failure in school, my failure in grades. It is what they, thems are. They're like the comparing of your typical trans they them to a fucking NPD covert vulnerable are damn near 1-to-1. So I don't think your theory is that far off. But I do think it's more an interesting hypothesis on the flat Earth. We don't have enough data for me to be able to draw anything from that, but it is certainly a thing with the they thems.
So that's that does sound like the final boss of a they them is where they ultimately end up. It does explain quite a bit, actually, but I think part of it is they actually are victims, and at some point they just fully embrace that victimhood personality type and end up.
Yeah, I mean, like that's why I described how a personality type, arrives, right?
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like, I talked to Chloe Cole, years ago.
Which just to finish, I do feel bad for them. I'm not saying I'm just like totally cold hearted to them, but at some point, like, what do you like? There's only so much you can do. My daughter, who happens to be a lesbian, was dating one of these girls who went by they them, and that's where I got a lot of the information about how she came up. And it's just wild to see.
Some of it's a fad. Some of it's a fad. Some of it is,
for sure.
For sure. Some of it's a fad. Some of it's that. But the answer is not cult like in-group collectivist things like discords where they isolate people from their parents and they find young people and they call them eggs because they've yet to crack into their trans identity, and going no contact with your parents and utilizing the ACA and the APA and school system to give power towards people that always push them towards a treatment route that there's absolutely no evidence suggests actually comes with better outcomes, because even post surgery, post that period where you're supposed to pass, post treatment, transgender population has a higher suicidality rate than do Jews under Nazi occupation. And so the idea that society is causing this problem because we don't accept them means that they're less accepted than Jews under Nazi occupation, which is fucking retarded. Like the answer is truth and reality. And yeah, I think there are some quote unquote true trans people. I think there are people like Buck Angel but they're a drop in the bucket compared to our current degeneracy and chemical castration and destruction that we're going through. And to add what you said, is the love bombing that comes along with associating yourself with those communities, and as well that feel good oxytocin hormone and all that crap you get with it. There's a lot of cult like stuff in the
it's another Jenga. It's another Jenga block. Yeah.
If you want to learn more about it, I did a whole conversation about it with Benjamin Boyce, just about trans and covert vulnerable narcissistic personality.
Awesome. I fully did not expect to go down this path. I'm glad we did, because this stuff fascinates me. I'm always interested in the psychology about why people believe what they believe rather than what they actually believe, because what they believe doesn't often comport with how they actually act in the world. It turns out most people I've noticed, they act very differently from how they say they believe, which is interesting to watch.
But as a libertarian, we believe in the theory of human action, right? So their actions actually prove how they believe.
100%. So I want to go a slightly different direction here. The guy that I do the Patriot Punkcast with here, he and I get in these discussions about anarchy all the time, and he's more the small government libertarian type, and I don't know, he just hasn't quite let go of the governments. Yes, I'm ribbing him a little bit right now, but one of the questions that he wanted me to pose to you, and something that he's kind of formulated, was the idea that each individual 50 states does represent what an anarchic society would look like. It kind of is the ultimate form of anarchy in his estimation, in that they each are kind of their own little microcosms of society and whatnot. I would argue they don't go quite small enough. They do have some semblance to it, but I'm just curious kind of how that sounds to you when I throw that idea out there.
You know,
how would you respond to that?
There's a joke in my community, which is what's the difference between an anarchist and a minarchist?
Mm-hmm.
6 months.
Okay. It's the same with the conspiracy theorists.
Just 6 months
that way.
You know what I mean? It's like, look, you know, once you're kind of already there and you're accepting 90% of the thing, you're kind of already seeing reality. And so, you know, just give it 6 months, you know. But all jokes aside, look, I don't disagree that more localization of laws leads towards a more, you know, a more accurate legal system for the values of the individuals that are inherent in that place. But ultimately, you know, as you said, I don't want, you know, 50 states. I want 1,000 Liechtensteins. And ultimately, you know, like I'm in Virginia right now, right? And so the idea that Virginia represents Nova, which is a bunch of government employees and lawyers, and Richmond and Virginia Beach and coal miners in Appalachia, where my family comes from, that fight wars over ginseng, are somehow all the same people, is wild, right? Like that's wild.
Yeah, that's hell of a varied population, and that's just a small portion of the overall United States.
Right. And that's so I don't disagree that Virginia is going to be better than the federal government at recognizing issues that are special or specific to Virginia, right? I mean, we could take that even further when we look at something like Alaska, right? Like I don't disagree that, you know, Alaskans understand Alaska better than Washington fucking DC does. But it is just
nobody understands Californians.
Yeah, right. So it's literally just a step closer, but it's many steps removed, right? Like it's just like if you want an example of an anarchist society in America, then look at the Beachy Amish, right? Like that's what an actual anarchist society looks like. You know, I don't disagree that there will be large places where people kind of choose to live under a pseudo state for comfort, but that is very different than one that imposes itself upon me and has a monopoly on power and violence.
The difference between doing it by choice versus against your will. Yeah, for sure. I mean, I'm cool with that. That's one of the things I've been talking to a lot of people about. It's like, hey, I think society, if it's going to actually operate, will kind of look like a little bit what the right looks like and a little bit what the left wants. It's going to be a little mix of both, and it's going to be more in one area and less in one area. It's just going to be a varied mix of a little bit of everything. And if you're just not happy where you're at, it's going to be a lot easier to pick up and move to another area than it currently is. It's just almost impossible to move out of wherever you're at because you're still going to be faced with the same laws 3 states away for the most part. It's not that different. But
yeah, I don't know. On that domain, who knows? Maybe it'll be harder, right? Like, but it'll be voluntary, and that will mean that it was efficient. Over time, you run that game enough, it just means that it was better that way, and we were just wrong in our intuition.
Yeah, there's one of the another slight change of topic here is the regulations, and I know we brought this up a couple of times. Is regulations in general. One of the biggest concerns I get is like, well, without the government, how do we regulate this XYZ? And one of the things that I constantly say is something about privatizing regulation. Is there a model that you've heard of that maybe you can explain that would make sense to people in terms of how we might actually handle, I don't know, not poisoning the air or not, doing the, microplastics in our food or, whatever the case is there a model that you've heard of that has been described or one that you've even come up with that might be able to solve those problems for people?
This is where libertarians often fail because so many of us are like very logos centered, very autistic in the way that we communicate ideas. Right. And this is where I think sometimes you have to use a little bit of pathos, a little bit of energeia. You have to tell a story and you have to kind of engage in a thought experiment. Right. So I'll give you 2 examples. One's really long and then the second one will be really fucking short. So example number 1 is.
It's short when you have to drop an F-bomb in the middle of it just to make it longer.
Well, it might just be, it might be that short just in relativity to how long-winded and verbose I am in the first one. I'll try and clean it up a little bit. But the Food and Drug Administration exists. And many people would say, well, we need the Food and Drug Administration. But the problem is there's a lot of problems, but the problem stems from the fact that it is a monopoly on the rights of what food and drugs can be sold in this country. So let's look at the Food and Drug Administration and see if we really like this program, and then do a little thought experiment against its alternative. So Food and Drug Administration is one of the biggest players in the opioid epidemic, without a doubt. Food and Drug Administration was bought and paid for by Purdue Pharmacy in creating a new type of label that was based on fraud for Purdue Pharmacy that made disingenuous claims that OxyContin was a less addictive substance than, other opioids. It was not. They were allowed to get a drug label that made a lie that told all of the doctors in America a complete falsity. And those doctors, many of whom didn't care because they got money, but many of whom initially trusted the FDA, trusted these labelings, trusted the data and the science and the people that do this for a living that said, this is less addictive. This is a miracle drug. And then they went into Appalachia and they went into Pennsylvania and they spread OxyContin everywhere they could, giving it to coal miners. And that is one of the big reasons that these places are completely dead, devastated. And my own family is, devastated to the point where I've lost 1 to drug overdose and 2 to suicide from opioid epidemic. So, I have a lot of hatred for the Food and Drug Administration, just in that domain. But let's take it out of that one fuck up, right? 25% of all drugs that are placed on the market that are made, given the thumbs up by the FDA are recalled. 25%.
25%. Is that all?
25% of drugs that go to market are later recalled. So obviously they're not. So 1 out of every 4 fucking drugs that Americans are taking is a drug that something is wrong with it to such a degree that it needs to be taken off of the market because it's too dangerous to give to people. That's a problem. That's a huge fucking problem. Yeah. Let's look at example number 3 within the FDA. When we had a factory not under the Biden administration that produced baby formula. And this factory was linked to 4 deaths of infants from a type of bacteria that was later discovered at the factory. Oof, maybe the FDA dropped the ball here. Well, it turns out we did an investigation, and what we found is that the 4 dead babies in question lived in absolute squalor. That their houses were full of roaches, their entire house was infested with bacteria and disease. And when we looked at the factory, the bacteria in question was found in a place on a bacteria floor somewhere, not actually in the food supply at all, and that they did a deep clean, and the FDA kept them closed for 3 months after they had completely cleaned the factory. Now, this factory was one of 4 major factories in the production of baby formula in the United States. And on top of that was the only factory for a couple types of formula for babies with certain food allergens. So what were we going to do? Well, the FDA and the CDC and the Biden administration kept the factory closed. They kept it closed for months and months and months. And all of a sudden we had a baby formula shortage. Remember there was baby formula shortage?
Yeah, I remember that. And they had from
this.
They had to look like they were doing something. So I mean,
you know what they did?
The logical solution is to shut down the factory, right?
And then the logical solution was to bring the factory back online, but only for those specific products for those babies with food allergens. So the factory was safe for those babies, but not safe for anyone else because the government wanted to get a nice check that as they went through legal issues. So they kept the factory closed for another 2 months. That's 5 months of one of 4 major facilities. And so how did the government solve this shortage? Well, instead of going to the Food and Drug Administration and saying, you know how it's illegal to import all of these products from Europe that don't have corn syrup in them because the corn lobby and big farming agricultural lobby has used tons and tons of money to purchase you off so that you can't legally get baby formula from Europe, which is safer and held to higher standards, right?
More Jenga blocks.
right? We're instead of the FDA getting out of the way and deregulating and allowing safer formula to come into the market, what the Biden administration did is they got a couple of Connexes and airplanes and went to a Nestle factory in Sweden and purchased with U.S. taxpaying dollars a whole bunch of baby formula and then put that baby formula in grocery stores, which, by the way, is the same baby formula that they slapped a new label on that is illegal in the United States because the FDA keeps it illegal in the United States because the big agricultural companies that push a bunch of soy and a bunch of corn syrup into our products. So when I say, I give you all of that information about the Food and Drug Administration, and I say, well, what's the ANCAP alternative? My answer is 3 or 4 companies competing that give information to doctors that they pay a subscription service to, and you trust your fucking doctor, and you allow companies to compete, and I'm pretty sure companies will get closer than 75% win rate on whether or not a drug is bad for you. That's my super long example. My super short example is Prospera Honduras exists. It is already an anarcho-capitalist community. Its economy is primarily 2 things: tourism and pharmaceutical industry getting that have labs and research where they can get away from regulations that are overburdensome in the rest of the world. You pay a 5% tax. Everybody can live. You can pay $3,000 and become a citizen. It is already an ANCAP community, with the exception of the fact that they have to pay a small tax percentage to Honduras based off of a UN treaty. And and when you go there, you sign up for a rights enforcement agency, and that an insurance company that protects your rights. All of the competing rights enforcement agency insurance companies have decided collectively that there will be no level 4 biolabs in Prospera Honduras because it's not worth the risk. Level 4 biolabs like the one in the Wuhan Institute of Virology that totally didn't create COVID, or the ones that were on the border of Ukraine and Russia that were made by Black and Vetch and a bunch of funny money got moved to Hunter Biden that totally didn't happen because that's a Russian conspiracy theory.
Yeah.
Our own government funds with taxpayer dollars level 4 biolabs, and we're supposed to say these are the guys that are keeping us safe because regulations are good. But when the free market in an anarcho-capitalist society exists, all of the insurance companies say that they refuse to build level 4 biolabs because the danger isn't profitable enough because the risk is too high.
Excellent answer. I appreciate you going into the detail on that. That's a hell of a long explanation and a short explanation for why regulations need to be privatized. I think once people can start at least thinking outside the box and thinking about, okay, well, without the state, without the government, how do we actually solve? It's just such a simple question. It's such a simple question that's
such a complicated answer.
Well, yeah. It is a complicated answer, but it's a simple question, and it's scary. That's the number one thing that I've ran into is people are just scared. They're scared of what a society would look like without what they're used to being there. And most of the answers I get come out of fear of XYZ. That's it. That's pretty much the whole of it for me.
The state has indoctrinated people into thinking that when the state gives a regulation, that experts are in charge, and that what they'll do is what they plan on doing. The state has completely ignored unintended consequences, which occur with almost every state action. And so what the normie hears is the unknown free market will fix it and regulate itself. That's really scary. I want the experts in charge, and the experts that actually know what they're doing, that have my safety in interest, will fix it. But they don't understand unintended consequences. And more importantly, they don't understand the economic calculation problem under Austrian economic theory.
It's also,
which is, they can't
it's basically the mind. Yeah, it's basically the mindset. If I can't dream up a solution doesn't exist. But I tend to trust my fellow man. I tend to find people in general really smart, actually, and able to solve.
Oh no, I think my fellow man is retarded, and that's why I want anarcho-capitalism. Because I think real experts will emerge in the domains of their own property, as opposed to a bunch of idiots voting for people like Trump and Kamala Harris.
All right, Scott, it's been an absolute pleasure having spoke with you today. I'm really glad that we were able to finally get this done. I look forward to maybe doing another one in the future on maybe some current events or something like that. But is there anything else that you would like to tell the audience before we wrap up today? maybe like where to find you and all that good happy crap.
Yeah, it was like a billion things. I'm sorry I'm so long-winded, and that's just because I'm passionate. And it's very rare that you get to have good conversations. Most of my content
that was my
debate
job as the
based.
host to rein you in. I long-winded is fine as long as it's engaging and interesting, and I can kind of tell when I start kind of zoning out. Yeah, and I have a short attention span, so
There you go.
You did great. You did great. I don't mind the long-winded explanations.
Yeah, I'm just apologizing before the comments come in that are like, who brought on this fucking like, oh my God. But anyways, if you were interested in what I said, or you want to see debates, I do a lot of debates online. And I do, interviews and discussions, and sometimes we just game. I'm a streamer. I'm not like a video creator. So you'll see like 6-hour streams. Just hop in sometime, ask some questions. I always answer super chats. So, feel free to just pop in and see what we're about. You can find me basically, just Google Fabian Liberty. You'll find my YouTube channel and my X account, or Zitter, or Twitter, or whatever the kids are calling it these days.
Excellent. Man, I appreciate you coming on. And if anybody wants to reach out to me, you said you're streaming this. I can be found on all social media platforms at Unframe of Mind. I post most of my spicy stuff over on X platform. I try to be a little bit more friendly to the normies over on Facebook, but I'm over there too. So yeah, with that being said, I'll let you off the hook, and
thank you.
Appreciate you for coming on, man. All right. Later. All right.
There
you go. So let me know what you think, and if anybody would like to reach out to Mr. Liberty or Mr. Scott there, please absolutely do. He's a wealth of information, a lot of interesting stuff he's got going on there. And if you want to listen to that episode of Timcast he was on, it was a lot of fun to listen to, for sure. I love those heated, passionate debates, so I fully recommend going and listen to that particular episode as well. So with that being said, this has been another episode of the Unframe of Mind show, where we have uncomfortable conversations without a condom. I'm your host, Daniel Wagner. Until next time.
Uncomfortable conversations without a condom is such a weird tagline. I read that shit on his YouTube, and I was like, all right, I'm cutting myself back up. Sorry for the sound, trigger warning on the sound. Yeah, it was a fun conversation. So I could do some streaming. I could get into a lot of shit. I'm not gonna today, and that's because I'm gonna get some. I'm gonna relax some. I'm gonna get some sleep, and I'm gonna work on some more shit. I have a video. I don't think it'll come out tomorrow. It'll probably come out Friday. That I'm working on, and so just stay tuned on that. And to give you just the slightest hint, you will be triggered by the title and the thumbnail, and it will probably be my channel trailer on YouTube. Because I don't do videos very often. I suck at editing. It takes me a long time. And it's probably mostly just going to be me talking to the camera anyways. But, we'll see. I really enjoyed the FDA topic and bringing up Prospera. Yeah, I appreciate it. If you want to know more or you want to hang out, make sure you like, share, subscribe to help grow, and and that it pops up in your algorithm. But you got to join the Discord, links in the description, or follow me on Twitter if you want to see my extra shit on Twitter, or if you want to make sure that when the live streams go out. You definitely want to do that. Now, I'm not 100% locked in, but I think Saturday as well, I should be talking with Noah from Midwestern Marks. He is a very well-read and intelligent, full-blown tanky. I mean, I don't know that he would consider himself a tanky. I think he's considered himself more of a classical communist. But I mean, he is, a member and friends with all of the American Communist Party, etc. About the term woke right. That could get heated. That could be super intellectual, but it's definitely going to be a nerdy conversation. The last one that I had with him was certainly that. And I just think that this is a really interesting topic to broach with the communists. Because they have a very different perspective on what is a liberal, what is woke. They're very much against critical theory, despite critical theory believing that it is the natural progression of communism. And so I look forward to that conversation. Who knows how heated it'll get? Maybe it'll be really dope. Maybe we'll just end up yelling at each other. Who knows? But I think it'll be good. Nah, dog. You got to listen to these people. You got to understand your enemy better. You do. And that's all I'll say about that, boys. So, like, share, subscribe, follow me on Twitter, join the Discord, and I'll be back maybe Friday. So not tomorrow because I'll be working on stuff. So maybe Friday, depending on how the video goes out, but definitely Saturday. And maybe we'll do like a Sunday fun day kind of game and relax on Sunday before we get the next week started, which should have Prime Kai's as well as a debate on Admiral Gibbs' channel, which I think is coming next Tuesday. And then by Wednesday, Thursday rolling around, I'll have more shit to react to. I'm on woke right discussion overload. Yeah, I could see that. I totally could see that. But I think you have a lot of really dumb people talking about it, and this won't be that. I think it would be a completely different take on it. It was supposed to happen Tuesday, by the way, but he double booked or had something come up. So it would have been before the overload kicked in. But you get what you get, and you don't throw a fit. So I will see you guys around. Like I said, join the Discord if you want to meme and